Welcome to Outlaw Woodworking. Today I'm going to show you how I improved my cutting boards, how I made some cauls for keeping the whole thing flat, and also we got to use the new table saw sled, plus we ordered a new tool today. Let's get started and I'll show you how I did it. The first thing I did was make some cauls, and these cauls are basically to clamp down flat. And I thought I would use 1x2, and this is pretty thick steel. This is 1/8 inch steel, and I use my cordless grinder with a steel blade and cut these things. I basically made these the same length as my pipe clamps, 3 feet long. That way they're perfect for doing flags or cutting boards or whatever I need. And right now I'm going to cut these, and then I'm going to clamp them. I'm going to use clamps to clamp on each side of them. The steel's pretty, when you first get steel, it's really dirty, so you need to clean it off really good. Otherwise you're going to just get that, it comes like with oil on it, and you want to get all that off. I then grind all the ends down, take off all the burrs. Yeah, this is going to make a big difference. In the future, I think I'm going to drill holes in these and have some bolts with some wing nuts to clamp down. But right now I'm just going to use clamps and see how I like it. So the next thing I do is I need to get something to clamp down, and I've been promising to make a better cutting board. And now I got some nice pipe clamps, and I got some walnut, and I got some poplar. So we're going to rip a bunch of pieces down and see if we can't do a better clamp, a better job. And this will be my fourth or fifth cutting board, and I'm hoping it's the best one, because now I don't really have any excuses. I've got pipe clamps, and I've made these cauls for keeping it flat. Plus I also have the table saw sled that I just made, and yeah, and my bandsaw blade's repaired. So there's a lot of good things that I should be able to produce a nice cutting board today. What's funny is, so here I'm laying out all these, the colors of the boards and everything. And I didn't even realize that when I clamped this up, all the grain of the poplar, it matched up perfect. So I was just lucky though. I should have been looking at that, and I wasn't even paying attention, and it came out really clean. This was the best clamp up that I've ever done. It's the flattest. It just came out really nice, and a lot of it has to do with these pipe clamps and the cauls. I think the cauls are probably just as important. And right here you see I get it set up, and then basically I'm going to take these cauls and I'm going to feed them in between. Now right now I put the bottom one flat, but in the future I'm going to have them both standing up. So you can see I get those clamped. I decided to clean this off a little bit before I put these other cauls on, because you can't really get in there. So next up, I cut two more of these cauls. So here you can see I got all 3 cauls, and the next day I unclamp it, and it was really nice and flat. It's the flattest I've been able to produce, and you can see it really came out clean. Now, even though it's super flat and it was clamped really nice, it takes a lot of work to still takes a lot of sanding. So I was sanding on this thing for an hour, and that's when I decided, so last month I bought the rigid sander. You'll see here in a second. I decided that I've had enough. I really need to get that planer. So I go online right here and I order the DeWalt planer, the 735X with the 2 side panels, and so hopefully that'll come in the next week. Then I get back to sanding, and I finish sanding this whole thing. It took about an hour to sand both sides of this, but it really looked good. Now I have a template that I'm going to use on this. That I recently made a cutting board, and one of the templates I liked, so I laminated this the same length as that template. Yeah, I'm sanding forever. Every once in a while a deer or turkey will go by and it'll distract me, but otherwise it's, yeah, an hour of sanding. It was definitely my best glue up so far, and I'm planning on getting a lot better at it. So there it is, all sanded, and you can see it came out really tight. I then used my table saw sled and cut one end off of it. I then take it over and use my template, and then I take it over to the bandsaw and I start cutting it out. I was really lucky that I was able to repair my bandsaw blade. It's a carbide blade, and if it's running nice and straight, it cuts really nice. Anyway, I cut this whole shape out. At this point, I was pretty proud of my glue up. I thought it came out really nice, and I was looking at this and thinking this might just come out really nice. So I finished cutting it on the bandsaw. And then I go over and I drill a couple holes in the handle, and I jigsaw out that center part. It's a tight little circle, and I'm using a really small blade. After I get the hole cut out, I take it over to the rigid sander, and I sand the whole thing. I've really been happy with the purchase of the rigid sander. I then go over to the router. This is a Jessam router lift. And I set this little quarter round bit, and I proceed to router the whole thing, inside and outside. Once I get the whole thing routered, I then need to do a little more do some hand sanding on it, just to get any router marks or burn marks or anything like that off of it. This is by far my best cutting board so far, and I'm looking to just keep improving every day. But I thought this one came out pretty nice. Let me know what you think in the comments. Once the routering's done, it's hand sanding. And that didn't take too long this time because it was actually in really good shape. I then oiled it with some walrus oil. And yeah, it's done. One improved cutting board. And there it is. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching this episode of Outlaw Woodworking. We're always trying to improve, and this is probably our nicest cutting board we've made so far, and it's really tight. It's pretty exciting ordering a new tool. I'll be having an unboxing, and the reason I ordered it is in spite of all the clamping and the new Cauls that I made for keeping the glue, keeping it flat, I still had to do a tremendous amount of sanding. I probably sanded both sides of this for at least an hour, and that's the reason I ordered that new planer. So hopefully you like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Later.